It's a great pleasure to welcome you to ESSEC and our executive campus in La Défense. This is our first time that we are having a luxury roundtable conference here. We had luxury events here last year with the India Research Center. And this year we are having now a program which is ESSEC-IIMA Ahmedabad Global Management Program in Luxury. And we thought that it would be a great event so that we hold this first luxury conference here with the participants who have come from India, with 5 participants who are here from India and 4 participants who are from France. And we have been doing this program for the last 4 years. This is the 4th year, and last year we had this idea of why not do a luxury roundtable conference in India, and we did 3 luxury roundtable conferences in India in January, February, March, in Mumbai, Delhi, and in Bangalore, with around 50 to 75 people attending it, and with around 5 to 6 or 7 speakers for each roundtable. So I will send you, those who have come here, I'll send you the details. But today, what we are going to speak about is growth of luxury industry in emerging markets, challenges and opportunities. And what I'll do is, for the first 5 to 7 minutes, or let's say 10 minutes, I will set the stage, and we have our presenters here. I'll introduce the presenters a little later on, and then we open the floor for discussion. So this is the way we did it in India. It was an innovative concept, I think. I don't know how it would work here, but we'll see if it works here or not. So the presenters speak for around 10 minutes. We have 4 presenters. With me, I think I have 5 presenters. And then it's around 50 minutes. And then we open the discussion to each small groups where you can discuss and you can come up with your suggestion. And we will go and see what you discuss. And this is an interactive process. At the end of the process, we would ask the groups to say what you have discussed, 1 or 2 points, and then we will summarize it here, saying that this is what you thought about. It's not about us who is presenting, but what the participants want to understand, and what you as listeners want to speak about emerging markets and speak about challenges and opportunities. Also, this time we have added interesting concept, which is invited, I don't know where our second speaker is, but invited 2 of our alums. One is alum of both IIMA Ahmedabad and ESSEC, very rare combination, who is Usha, who is 1 year senior to me from IIMA Ahmedabad, and I think did the luxury MBA program here in 1999. And now she has started her own company, which is also related to India. And we have another lady who is also an alum, who is going to launch a program with an entrepreneurial, of course, it's an entrepreneurial venture. And she is starting this venture with ESSEC on the 3rd floor with our ESSEC Ventures. So I hope she will be there very soon. So let's start with my ideas of growth of luxury industry in emerging market and see how it goes. Okay, so we have a small 2 axis, why emerging markets, and we think that this is goes back a lot with the history about product life cycle theory, which means that one hand, y-axis is globalization. On the other hand, family business are being transformed to corporatization and creating global corporations. And the way that it has evolved over time is innovation and success in the home market, which means that they are standardized products for any of the issues, which means that this is the general model. So basically innovation, success, then entering in nearby international markets via licensing, wholesale distribution. Then we go up to sourcing, establishing administrative and operational divisions. Then we have retail expansion, and we enter and tap emerging markets because those are the markets that grow the fastest. And since that is the fastest growth, what we tend to say that most of the companies today want to have business there because it gives you profitability and it gives you growth both at the same time. So what are the issues in those markets? The first issue is the size of the markets. Most of the markets which we are talking about as emerging markets are very huge, are very large, are very vast, and there is an infrastructure issue in those markets. Why there are some infrastructure issues? Because since they are large, they don't have luxury malls, let's say. If they have, they're just being built. They don't have a luxury road, which means where all the shops, all the boutiques of luxury companies will be there. This is still happening. There are cities which have 20 million people, which means around 1/3 of the French population. So basically, from one place to another, there is a way of saying that one store has no meaning in a huge market like that. So you must have multiple stores. If you have multiple stores, how many stores you want to have? This is an issue. So also there's infrastructure issues. Some countries like Russia, some countries like India, for example, have infrastructure issues, which means that, again, the infrastructure is not a place where you would see luxury companies. So luxury companies usually are in hotels. So, and you have n number of hotels. So basically, you cannot go out of hotels and say that we have started the luxury business. Retail formats, which is rationalization of retail formats, which means that decreasing life cycles of retail formats, logo preferences in emerging markets. For example, we have a specialist from China, Jonathan, who is also our alum, who will speak about a little bit about China. And the stores are getting bigger. The bling bling is getting more prominent. And the lifespan is from 16 years to 6 years. The balance between space and efficiency is a question mark. Also, the question mark is on merchandise mix, and we have Franck, who is also an alum, who will speak about design, location, and remodeling cost, complexity, and increased overhead expenses. So this is another question. I think there are challenges and opportunities in this also. Then the brand management in emerging economies. Luxury brands usually follow some trends, create trends. So do luxury companies from France and from Italy want to edit customer choices or influence the customer choices is an important question. And what will be the emerging consumer preferences? Would these consumers like the European brands, or they would like their own brands, or they would like their own brands to be more successful than the European brands, or the European brands would adapt themselves to those local markets? I think that is also an important challenge and an opportunity in this respect. For which sourcing, it's a big question for luxury companies. Why it's a big question for luxury companies? Because we play with two modes of operation. One operation is we can increase price, and one way is to decrease cost. So a way to have more profitability is to decrease cost, and a way of making more margins is to increase price. So basically, a brand which some people say it's luxury, some people say it's not luxury, but is doing huge business is Coach, and it completely says that we are making all the products in China. And if China becomes expensive, we can go to India or we can go to Vietnam, but we are a luxury company. Would the other companies behave the same way? And if they behave the same way, would you buy those products? If you say that LV is making its bags in India or in China, would LV sell the way as it sells today is a question mark, and this could be a challenge for luxury companies. Of course, there are environmental friendly processes, natural ingredients, labor policies, which will affect this, and this is a sourcing issue, which is basically a balance between manufacturing cost efficiencies and consumer expectations. Expectations from Europe would be that it's made in France, made in Italy. Expectation in emerging markets would be we buy that because it is made in France and made in Italy, but at what cost and how much the cost can rise to have around 60% profitability. Network optimization, which means that today, if you see, I'll just go into details. I won't go into too much of details, but we have done a study to say that two brands have entirely different strategies. One is Cartier, which wants to increase number of stores, for example, in China, and Patek Philippe, which wants to decrease number of stores in emerging markets. So this is a way for accessibility, and this is a way for distribution network to balance between exclusivity and reach. So this is, I think, also an opportunity and challenge in this market. Last but not the least is splendor amid squalor, which means that China bans luxury advertising. Luxury companies and emerging markets can go for a social unrest, because in a city like Mumbai, in a city like Moscow, you have people who are very, very poor, and in the same place you have people who are very, very rich. It could be also in Brazil. It could be also in Kazakhstan, which was a conference I attended last week. Also, government may ban on luxury goods and services. Consumers may say that we don't want to use them because it has different connotations, not only socially but also environmentally, and increased taxes on global brands. For example, emerging markets have the highest tax. So when you don't want to buy those same products in that country, you buy from a different country, take it back to your home country. And is this route a challenge or an opportunity? That can be also an important question. Of course, the future sustainability and inclusive growth is a question with this. So what I have tried to do is I have tried to come up with some operational efficiency questions, which is retail formats, the size, the network, how many where, social media, balancing the brick and crick, the brand management, extension, sourcing, continued cost rationalization, and splendor amid squalor, unpredictability of emerging markets. And these are the opportunities and challenges that we might discuss with the different brands that we have today, who might speak a little about those things. So who we have here? So I have done my part. Now I'll listen to my presenters. So we have Agnes, who is the board member and CEO of a company which is very, very chic, I think. It has only 4 stores and 9 outlets. No. How many?
55 stores by own outlet.
We have Alexis, who was 6 years before my student. Now he's the head of business development in Pernod Ricard. We have Franck, who was not my student, but he's also from ESSEC, who is working a lot with design. Then we have the discussion. This is the plan. Then we have comments of Chinese luxury market. We have Jonathan, who was not my student, but also from ESSEC, who did the LVMH chair, and he's now a consultant in China. He spends half of the time in China. And then we have discussion corner for women in entrepreneurship. We talked about Usha, who worked with luxury companies, who would speak a little bit about what she's doing. She has already had a startup. Bina is still not here, but probably will be here. Bina is trying to launch internet site or internet portal to do something with India and France. And then we will have a concluding comments to say what we understood from this 1.5 hour of discussion.
So thank you very much to have coming today. I'm very glad to begin to speak about the brand of Vilebrequin. I don't know if you know this brand. Vilebrequin is... Comment ça fonctionne, ça? Vilebrequin is the leading men luxury brand in beachwear. And it's a 40 years heritage Saint-Tropez lifestyle. It's a brand very known in Saint-Tropez, but also in France and in Italy, where it's a core market. But during the past 40 years, it has been developed all over the world. We have a concept which is father and son, which is very important for us to match the product between the father and the son. I'm going quite just to present rapidly the brand. It's a very standard presentation with all explanation about the story and what is really the swimming trunks we are presenting with a special product we developed. It's a very technical product with a lot of steps to have a very technical design, suitable fit for everybody with very luxury detail. And the code for us is, of course, the print, the white color, and the brand is considering as a preppy. It means over the trends, a permanent style. So we have some different collection with the different category of consumer we have. And we develop some ready-to-wear and some swimming trunks to have a global concept to can wear the products before we swim, when we're on the beach, during the beach and after the beach. And also we have developed a foundation, Plant a Fish. We have a partnership with the Plantation Foundation because we are aware that we must take into account environmental strategy, and for us it's very important to have a partnership with people who save the planet. And also the symbol of this foundation is a turtle, which is the symbol of the brand. So just to summarize globally our brand, so 40 years history, father and son concept to allow for new bonds to be created between father and son, and strengthened family ties. Values are passed on from generation to the next, impervious to passing fashion trends. We have very high quality products which really are famous for all famous people, which are actors, singers, politicians, royalties. Most of our marketing is based on that because we do not to spend any money on it. Our products are so well known in these famous people that they make the marketing for us and buy their own product. Our presence is now in 52 countries on the 5 continents. We have a very core market, which is France and Italy, because the brand is born in France and, of course, has been developed in Europe. Europe currently represents about 60% of business. 30% is USA, and the remaining 10% is for the other countries like Hong Kong and South America. We have a very strict global control of the brand and the distribution network. We have 3 distribution networks. We have retail, master franchisee, and distributors. And the strategy to have this different distribution channel is really to penetrate different markets. We have about 55 stores that we own and which are considered as the most important marketing for us because it's located in very famous location in resorts place like Saint-Tropez, Cannes, Marbella, Saint-Barth, Miami Beach, and in the more fashion capitals like Paris, Milan, New York, Hong Kong. And this presence in this most important area gave us a high visibility. We also have 52 franchise stores in the world-class location within predominantly emerging markets, including Eastern Europe, Middle East, Turkey, South, Central America, and Mauritius. It was really a choice to develop in this kind of markets with franchise stores because internally we were not able to manage it by own, and it was a first step for us to develop this market with this strategy. And we also developed a strategy to grow in premium position with 11 shop-in-shops. It means mini concept of boutique in best luxury department stores, mostly in England and in US, but we plan now to go in Asia in this concept. And we have about 74 not 75, 745 multi-brand point of sales and duty-free store locations all over the world. So we can say that we have more than 1,000 point of sales all over the world. Our core market, I have said, is France, Italy, and Europe. This market is quite mature for us, so we plan to develop the strategy in other emerging markets. That's the reason we can start to go in emerging markets like South America, Eastern Europe, with some partners. For instance, we developed partnership and master distribution agreement with Brazil. In Mexico, we already have more than 20 points of sales in Mexico with our partner locally. And we also start in Croatia, in Russia, in Bulgaria, with this local master franchisee partner. And for the future, for the next 3 years, what we plan, of course, is to develop in Asia, because it's the region where currently we are less present. We focus in China, and the first step to focus in China was to enter in this region through Hong Kong. That's the reason, more than 6 or 7 years ago, we opened some shops, and we now have 3 shops in Hong Kong, in the most famous mall, which are Harbour City, IFC, and Pacific Place. And in Macau, in the Venetian Resort, which are the most luxury mall in this region. And for us, it was really a good test to see if our brand can go there, because for us, it was really a challenge, because we know that Asian people, it's not people who are swimming, who are going to the sea. And we see that we really have a good ramp-up of our stores, and we now have a very high level of square meter rentability with our shops. But it took for us quite 5 years to penetrate this market, but without local support in terms of marketing. So the strategy for Asia was the first step to go through to Hong Kong. We also plan to go in Taiwan too. We are convinced that we have now a different aspect to see the development in this market in Asia. First of all, we want to focus on high quality and best products. For this market, we are convinced that we cannot propose some products which are middle class or not very high end. We have different category of products in our on a range of products with different category of price. The first price started about 100 euro, and the highest currently about 500. And between of that, we have different category of products. And for China, we are convinced that we must have more luxury products. Of course, as you said, which mustn't be produced in Asia or in India or in emerging markets, but produced in Europe. And we are very, it's very important for us to have made in Italy or made in Bulgaria, perhaps product, but made in Europe product, because the credibility is important on that. And to develop some specific line, which are perhaps more luxurious and more exclusive, with limited, very limited emission, perhaps only 100 pieces all over the world, because we know that some people are really look for exclusivity, and to be sure that nobody can have the same swimming trunk than the others. So we are developing another product which must be more expensive, the most expensive swimming trunks, which can reach 1,000 euro. So but we know that we already have some orders about that. That's incredible. So after about opening shops, we had 2 possibilities to open shops, to go by ourselves or to find a joint venture and a partner. Currently, we decided to start to go by ourselves, because we do not, for the moment, achieve to find a partner who is interested in our product, because they consider that it's a too small market. They want to open 50 or 100 stores, and we plan for us in the next 2 or 3 years to open only less than 20 stores, because for us we consider that it's too early. But what is important for us is to go massively in one time. To penetrate Chinese markets, we are convinced, with many studies we made, that the penetration must be done very quickly, like other brands has done it. It means to be present everywhere quite at the same time. So we plan to open 10 shops each year. If we plan to open 20, it means 12 shops in 10 or 12 shops in 2013, and the same number in 2014. We also need to develop a local Asian platform. When I say develop a local platform, it's not only a logistic platform, it's really a specific dedicated platform with a lot of people who can also manage some things, some issues to be managed to penetrate the market. For instance, to respect traditions, to respect symbols, to adapt the fit of the customers. Because for us, it's very important to be sure that the product will really suit well. And of course, we cannot propose the same swimming trunks to an American guy and to an Asian guy. It's really not the same size. It's not the same shape, which must be. And because of that, we consider that we certainly have to adapt some of our products to be really on the best way to penetrate these markets. So I think I expose our strategy about Asia, and for the other country, emerging market, it's through distributors. So.
I'm sorry, I don't have slides to introduce Martell, Mumm, Perrier-jouet. I'll try to entertain you directly by myself. So just a few words on Martell, Mumm, Perrier-jouet. It's a luxury or premium division of Pernod Ricard. So Martell is the second largest cognac brand in the world. You may know Hennessy. Martell is number 2 and Rémy Martin is number 3. But Martell is a leader in the extra old qualities that are the most premium qualities, the most expensive ones. As far as Mumm and Perrier-jouet are concerned, you may know Mumm. It's the largest brand in France and the third in the world. The first being Moët & Chandon, and the second one being Veuve Clicquot. Both of them are from the LVMH group. So what I wanted to share with you tonight is more about my personal experience of this business development job. The core of it being the long-term planning, strategic planning of our sales in the world. Because as far as cognac is concerned or champagne is concerned, you have to age the product. For champagne is in average 2 to 3 years. For cognac it goes up to 15, 20 years. So what I decide to buy now for cognac is what I will be able to sell in 20-year time at a very high price in China. So that implies that on an everyday basis almost, I have to figure out the development of all my emerging countries, mainly China, Russia, Brazil. India, so far it's a bit tough, sorry for our Indian friends, but the taxes, import taxes are so high, the market's closed so far, it's almost closed. So it's pretty much about China that I will try to give you some examples. So what I wanted to highlight is more about the challenges of emerging market rather than opportunities because you well know the opportunities behind, and I guess the challenges are more interesting from what I feel. So the challenges for me are on making, about marketing, about selling, and thinking luxury. About making, you had just seen in the introduction the growth of this market, especially China, is so huge that in terms of resources, I mean, it's also true, I guess, for watchmaking companies, it's just pumping completely your resources. And when you have resources that were decided on decision made 3 years ago or 10 years ago, you end up globally, not individually for your brand, but globally, the AOC, the Champagne region, being short of supply. And of course, you can manage to buy stocks from the other one, but basically, you find yourself in a situation where if you want to put more volume in China or in Russia, you have to take volume out of another country. So that's a very tough decision because you lose opportunity, but you have to figure out in terms of strategy how it happens. And in terms of supply, in terms of industrial setup, I mean, when your volumes are jumping by 20% because now China is making maybe 80% of your growth, and these guys are just importing like 20 or 30% more volume every year. That's just stretching a little bit your industrial capacity. So, and then the industrial director has to make the decision: do I decide to double the production capacity or not? And it's a very tough decision because you can imagine that tomorrow, I don't know, something is the real estate bubble in China just pops up, and then you end up with stocks for 10 years, overstocks of products, and then your ROCE, all your financial indicators go down. It's a really a tough bet. So and all the amount in terms of immobilization, etc. It's huge. It's a huge bet every time. In terms of strategic planning itself, it's a real challenge to estimate the development of this market. Of course, if you take the European market for spirits or champagne, you take a 2 or 3% CAGR over a 10-year period, and you're quite sure to be correct. When you talk about China, India, Russia, you talk about a market where you have an increased distribution when you reach new cities, new region, etc. So you have to figure out the rate of penetration to these new cities, to this new area, and you have to figure out the flow of new potential customers. And that's where I come to the second challenge, which is about the marketing of luxury. Obviously, when I discuss with the marketing people, it's so hard to know the customer because you have a flow of new customers or customer bases at least that is so huge that you're constantly you're renewing your customer bases. If I take an example in terms of to give you a figure, in China we estimate that around 150 million people can afford our product. Just a quick parenthesis, a basic cognac is 50 euros in China. It goes up to 2,500 euros. So that's quite an investment for this, I mean, just for us also, but I mean, it's quite a huge price. 150 million, and we expect this customer base to inflate to almost 300 million in 5 years' time. But the tricky part of it is that you have your typical customer pyramid. You have new customers, younger customers, and you lose the old one eventually. The point is, out of the 150 million extra customer you gain, maybe 30 million are the younger one coming, but 100 million are people coming into the pyramid at every age stage just because their wealth standard just allows them to buy your product. So you have to figure out how you rejuvenate your brand constantly, how you capture this new customer who have different tastes because they are from different regions, tier 3, tier 4 cities in China, the Far East region in Russia, and you expect that these people, of course, they don't have the same taste as the Moscow or St. Petersburg crowd that are much more exposed to the Western style. So this is quite a challenge. For Brazil, it's another example where you have you have very wealthy layer of people that are the basic customer of luxury, but you have the middle class that is bringing more customers, and which has impact on your category. For instance, in the past, in Brazil, the generic term for sparkling wine was champagne because you have the customers were these very rich people. Now you have this middle class coming in, they have less of a culture of the product, and now the generic term for sparkling wine is spumante, the Italian sparkling wine. That shifted because the diffusion of Italian sparkling wine was much wider, but the consequence is champagne is less well understood by your customers. So you have to reinvest into category awareness, and that's a kind of challenge. In terms of marketing also, but I already mentioned it, it's adapting to the taste of your new customers. It's a real challenge for the marketing team, because the point is our range was designed mostly for Western and American people. Take the cognac, for instance. For champagne, it's so European centered that it's really European design, no discussion. Then all new products are almost directed at Asian or emerging markets, so they are designed with a specific, and the focus groups are Chinese people, so that they bias our design in a certain way. But in return, it's very hard. We don't know how we're going to market these products in Western countries, because we are not sure it will be a very good fit. So you want to be very relevant, because it's 80% of your growth. But as a matter of fact, you're renewing your range with the design, with the style, with the positioning, all the marketing mix, which is really skewed toward a specific area. And this is quite of a challenge. And also in terms of internal resources, the management is deciding to put most of the people to work on products that generate growth. So they take people from the product design for Western parts, the cheapest one, and they put them on the highest end and the more emerging-oriented product. But as a result, the rhythm of innovation, new product, etc., for the Western-style products is declining. So you have to make a decision in terms of product allocation, but you also have to make a decision in terms of strategic focus, and you run the risk not to have your product, and also to have a product that is either old because you didn't renew it because you just spend most of your time for product for emerging market, or that is not fit to the American style or whatever. I cannot put a product designed for China in the US for sure. Third challenge about selling luxury, the purchasing process. If you compare between Chinese and Western, the rationale, the reason why they buy, it's so much different. The role of gifting is so strong in Asian culture, and cognac fits perfectly in that, in face-giving occasions. So they want, eventually they care about what is in the bottle, but they care so much about the packaging and the way they can display the packaging at home, because it shows that they've been offered this very nice, very expensive cognac bottle. So you have to spend a lot of money and thinking in terms of improving all the time the packaging, explaining that you've put the very oldest eau de vie, except it means that it's the most expensive, is secondary eventually. So it's quite a shift in terms of selling process. In terms of competition, the cost of doing business in China is skyrocketing, because everyone is going after China. It's skyrocketing also in tier 2, tier 3 cities. If you want to buy a non-trade account, a bar, a restaurant, when you want to have your bottles everywhere and make sure that your brand is very well known, the price are doubling every year. So the cost of doing business is high, and the competition is also coming from local brands that really copy the in terms of marketing mix, etc., the design of the bottles, etc. Really being inspired by a Western brand, that's for sure. And they happen to produce very high quality products, so, and of course super relevant culturally speaking. In terms of selling challenge, also a very interesting challenge is a strange price volume elasticity. If you increase the price of some of your product, for instance, to stop a little bit the growth, to slow down because you don't have the resource, you happen the sales are going up. So that's a bit tricky, because it just gives more value to the product, and so that's a really confusing situation. And eventually, in terms of risk exposure, you see the balance between your different regions of the world shifting very, very fast. And in 5 years' time, the weight of China in value and volume is just... So, I mean, in terms of risk management, not being exposed too much to a collapse in one region. Of course, if China collapses everyone will be hit, but basically you feel a bit uncomfortable. So that's quite an issue. Fourth challenge is about thinking luxury. obviously the definition of luxury is not the same as for us all the time. You see in China, you have a very a nice packaging for packaging to protect the packaging, etc. And you see people coming in the shop and just removing the nice packaging, putting the 2,500 bottles on the back of their scooter and just going the flow of everything with the very pricey product. And they have a relation to luxury which is very specific. I already spoken about the role of gifting, that's more or less for me. A word as a conclusion. It was already mentioned at the very beginning, but I guess luxury is really it's also about pushing your product and generating customer pull, and not being into the customer pull all the time. And when you go after major market, because you want to be culturally relevant, you tend to listen very much to the consumer because you want to eat the consumer properly. But then you lose a bit this push aspect. That's just, I am my brand, I have this strong identity, this is me, you have to buy this identity or not. It's part of the luxury, I guess. And this is a risk I see, is listening too much to the consumer to some extent.
So my name is Usha. I'm a rare product here because I went to IIM Ahmedabad. I'm from the class of 1997. And then I went to ESSEC for the MBA program because I met a Frenchman in Hong Kong and I followed him and I had to get a job in Paris and I didn't speak a word of French at that time. So I thought the best way to do it was to go to ESSEC. And it was a good decision. I worked in L'Oreal after that for a couple of years and then figured that I had this really, really strong wish to do a reverse trend and bring India to Paris in a way that was coherent with what I had already done, in a way that would apply my origins, because I come from a very far away part in India, which is just near Burma. It's a state called Assam, which is famous for its tea, and that's about it. And I wanted to use the traditions that we have, which is exactly what Franck was talking about, and try and interpret these traditions in a way that would fit in with the Western concept of luxury, but not the bling-bling luxury. This is a reverse luxury. So just to recap on the work aspect of what I did. So I worked in L'Oreal, working in the luxury part, the luxury division, working on brands like Lancôme and Helena Rubinstein for 4 years. Then I went to another company that did marketing and distribution of fragrances. It was a company called Selective Beauty. And then I quit and I said, now what do I want to do? So basically the first thing that came to my mind was textiles, because it was very coherent with what I wanted to do, which was basically touching the product. And it's something that you touch, it's something that you see, it's something in which you can combine actually the design element and also the business element, which is not very common actually in France today. So I thought, what will be the clever way to combine the design element and the business element? So what I did was I made a box of ideas, which basically took very traditional. It could have been prints, it could have been treatments, washing treatments, it could have been combining of two different kinds of fabrics. And I took them to middle-range luxury brands, which would be brands with the equivalent of Bon Point. So it was not the top of the line, but it was brands like Bon Ton, it was brands like Bon Point, it was brands like APC, which retail, I would say, a shirt would retail from 150 to 300 to 400 euros. That's the price range. So I took that to them and I said, look, you've been working with India for outsourcing. What I plan to give you is not just an outsourcing platform, but something that will help you in your design as well. And they said, okay, let's try. So we started like that, where I would bring them design elements, and they would actually then work with their own designers, and I would get it manufactured. So I would actually start with the raw material and say, okay, this is an interesting fabric, this is an interesting chemical treatment, use this and see what you can do. So this is what I did for 3 years, and I still do it, and I have the same clients, very, very loyal, getting bigger and bigger in spite of the crisis, so I'm happy. But why I'm actually even happier is that I actually took the step last year of saying, okay, this is enough. I'm quite happy working with everybody else, but now I want to promote Assam. So Assam is this really far-off area near Burma in the south of China that nobody ever heard of. But we have a very, very traditional weaving technique that comes from there, which is called an extra warp technique. And Agnes actually found it 2 years ago. And they used it in in a range of scarves that use this technique, and it was all over the magazines and all over the vitrines, what do you call it, windows. Yeah, I'm becoming really French now. So this is, I'll just pass it around so you can have a look. This is a traditional garment worn by Assamese women. They wear a kind of a skirt at the bottom, and they wear this in the top. And this is a very special weaving technique, which is called an extra warp. And I use these kind of things to make a product that appeals to the sensibility of quite a discerning woman, because it's a very simple product. What's special about it is that everything is done by hand, including the fabric. So if you touch it, it's very different from a normal cotton product that you would find at H&M or Zara or whatever. Every single yarn in this product is made by hand. So it's not something that you can see, it's not something that you can smell, but it's something that you can touch. And it's only a woman who would be able to discern that kind of a touch who would buy this product. And honestly, today, 90% of my clientele is Japanese. They all come and buy in Paris because it's a French brand, but it's all going to Japan. It's going to very, very high-end stores in Paris, stores like Merci. It's a store called French Trotters. These are very, very high-end concept stores that actually set trends, that actually say, okay, we're very exclusive, come and buy from us. And people from New York, people from Japan, they would be recommended in the style section of the New York Times, or saying that these are the new concept stores in Paris, and this is where you want to go and shop. So all these products are completely made by hand, and people who really touch them will know what it is. This is my baby. It's a map of Assam, and it's sold really well. It was just to make myself happy, and we did that, and it worked. So we do. So I made this with, basically it shows the tea pluckers, it shows the rhinoceros. And it shows a hat that the women wear when they go and, when they go into the rice fields to pick the rice. So this is the brand. Today, the concept is just scarves because it's easy, it works. But tomorrow, the concept is lifestyle. So my plan is to, but it's not showing the entire screen, but my plan is to slowly build a range of accessories and then go into homeware and just build on it. So right now, I'm retailing in about, I would say in 15 countries through about 30 multi-brand stores, mainly in Japan, and a lot in Germany, a few in France, and a few in Belgium, and a few in Italy. But yeah, so I'm not at all in the American subcontinent because I'm just not bling-bling enough, but it's something I cherish, and it's I'm working with a marketing person who's been with LVMH for 15 years. He's very interested in the product, so we're going to the press next week, and hopefully by the summer next year you'll be able to see quite a lot of stuff on the brand in the magazines. And this is just going to be the concept of a very pure product. It's actually khadi. Everything that I use is khadi, but I don't call it khadi because there's a brand already that's called khadi. It's a French brand, but it is a khadi product. It is completely pure. What I would just conclude by saying very shortly is that the couple of challenges, of course, to this project, something that everybody knows in every sector, whatever it may be, costs in India are rising amazingly. This is for various reasons, because everybody expects us to be kind and gentle to the people who work for us, but nobody wants to pay for it. Well, the time has come now and everybody has to start paying for it. And it's showing up in the prices. It's creating a huge problem here. The rise, of course, the costs of raw material rising as well, because there's a lot of competition coming from within the Indian market, and of course some Chinese people who buy everything out of India now. There's a lot of uncertainty, as you all know, regarding the demand as well as the currency fluctuations. There's a very short attention span for brands in general, so one has to keep innovating, keep thinking of new ideas. And thankfully enough, there are lots of opportunities on the other side. The first opportunity for me, as far as my design element is concerned, is the huge treasure chest of traditional crafts. This is what Franck was talking about. We are very, very lucky in that way. We've got centuries and centuries of artists who've been working on their own crafts, which have or have not been exploited to fit the Western tastes. And I have this enormous archive or library back home, which I can use to build on. There is a very, very strong trend and a movement towards real and authentic products. This is a product that's completely real and it's completely authentic. It's made by hand. It has a story to tell. You can tell where the woman is making it. She's sitting in the villages. She's not inspired by money. You can give her any amount of euros to make the product. She doesn't care. She just wants it because she's making a beautiful product. I go and tell her, look, it's in the stores of Paris, and she gets really excited. And it's a real human story, and that human story sells. It sells more and more, and which is an enormous blessing for me. The third thing is, there is also a huge trend nowadays for brands to go the lifestyle way. More and more brands are not just making one product. They're making homeware, they're making garments, they're making accessories, they're making footwear, they're making bags, they're making everything. So the brand that I'm planning to build, or I am in the process of building, is an entire lifestyle brand. And the last thing, of course, which is amazing for me, is that there is an amazing client base for me here to exploit, not just in terms of the product and the different kinds of product in terms of design, but also in terms of categories. So there is a huge potential. And the most important thing is, of course, to say that today I am capable, or with the people that I'm working with, of saying that we are going to present to you an Indian brand that is very high-end, that is completely Indian, that appeals without necessarily having to take from Western brands and say that we are using your monograms, we are using the way that you've been designing, we are using the way we've been designing and making it appeal to you. And it's actually working. So I'm very, very happy with that. So it's a reverse story, but it's a story that has a good future, I think. Thank you very much.
You haven't talked at all about internet. Do you think that internet is also an improvement factor in the emerging countries for luxury brands? It's still slow in mature markets, but as in these emerging countries, people don't have always the same level of knowledge of luxury, or at least the same relationship with the luxury. Are you using internet as a level to penetrate all these markets? My name is Jacques Bloch. I've done ESSEC. I've worked mainly in the cosmetic business, in export functions.
There's several things in the internet. There are, on one side, definitely the social medias. And if you take, I don't know the exact figure, but the percentage of use of all the Facebook, and I don't know the Chinese version, there is a Chinese Facebook, the percentage is so high that if you want to keep rejuvenating and recruiting customers, you need to be there. So as far as I'm concerned, for Martell, there is a Facebook page, there is a, and it's animated, there are lots done. If you think in terms of websites, there is a big part about customer education. So about the product, explaining why, how it's made, why it's so expensive eventually. It's a very, very rich website, because one of the upside for it is on top of buying an expensive product, you give people the occasion in society or with others to express a certain level of culture and knowledge of the product. And they will be able not only to buy this product, but to demonstrate that they are in culture and they are beyond money. They know the product and they have discernment. They've been choosing this brand because it supplies in certain area, etc. Because it has a story, etc. If you take the Rémy Martin Louis XIII, it's the oldest, the most prestigious spirit in the world, I guess. It was created in 1874. It's very old. And they have a CRM program, which is internet-based, Club Louis, which is for the most precious customers, and they do a lot of CRM through that. So, yes, it's really a huge focus. And if you have a younger brother or people who don't know in which direction to study digital marketing, people really top marketing people, plus technically able to speak in the digital world, it's really a must. And I mean, all companies are looking for that.
what we said before is also true, that in the emerging market, this is an opportunity and also challenge because it's so huge. So do we use the internet as a tool to go to a number of customers who are not reachable otherwise?
Good evening. Let me introduce me in a few words first. I'm Alain Viau. I've been working for 25 years in the luxury industry, 17 years with Cartier all over the world. So I remain the golden years of the 90s where we were speaking about Japanese people. Now we speak about Chinese people. So, and it's the same old story, and which is good for luxury industry. So let's not forget what we've known in the past and what will be the future to understand the future, like a Chinese say will teach us. After Cartier, I've been the CEO of Liadro, which is not at all known in France, but all over the world. And I've been quite proud of first being one of the first 3 luxury companies to open a joint venture in India in 2006, the day the law was approved, based on a very rich Indian customer base. The 3 brands were Louis Vuitton, Fendi, and the third one, Liadro. And also very proud of selling porcelain to Chinese people. They invented the porcelain 800 years before the European people, and we could sell them Spanish porcelain, which is quite amazing, but confirm what Franck said about authenticity, because they had a very authentic art style that Chinese would like because it was in porcelain. What I haven't heard in all the discussions is the big issue about price difference. Customers in the emerging markets travel more and more. They have internet. They get more and more educated, and they compare prices. At some point, luxury European brands, they have to sell way more expensive in the emerging markets because of the duty taxes. At some point, the customers will say, oh, come on, that's a robbery. Then they would criticize Western brands when the issue is about their government with the duty taxes. So at some point, what do you think? Would they really obey the laws of the OMC treaties they signed and will really open their market and decreasing their duty taxes so that customers can benefit of the same price all over the world or not?
Thank you for your question. Just to comment, and then I'll open the floor. These emerging markets, there are a thin layer which are very, very rich, and there's a big layer which is very, very poor. So the government has to decide, it's a political decision, whether they would go into this discussion, debate, to say that we cater to the topmost and we don't cater to the next level. And now in India, in the last week, if you have followed, the government, after a long discussion, said that the foreign direct investment for single brand would be 100%, and for multi-brand would be 51%. And then immediately there was a huge furor in the whole country, and the government stepped back and said, no, not for today, after the election. So today, the question is, those who buy these brands, they can buy anywhere else across the world because they are affluent. They can buy from, for example, in China, they can buy from Hong Kong, they can buy from Singapore, they can buy from Dubai. It's the same for India. But the key question is, if this is also true, then why Japanese people, Chinese people buy it in Paris? And they have been buying it for a long time. They could have bought it in their own country. And on the other hand, the issue is counterintuitive because everyone would like these huge countries to open. And there is a market. For example, from the Indian scenario, there's a story, probably you know this story, that when Louis Vuitton started, they didn't know who will buy their bags in Delhi. But suddenly, from a state of Haryana, there were people who came in with sacks of notes, with sacks of to cash to get the trunk for their daughter's wedding. And then once it started, everyone in that area would have or wanted to give the same trunk for the daughter's wedding. And now this trunk, they have never gone abroad. And they had to buy it in India. So the issue is now, I think our speakers would like to comment on, but from my point of view, that it's not a question, but it's a type of reality, you know, because still now in Japan, it's much more priced than in Paris. And so Japanese people come here to buy still, and they have this, with one passport, you can buy 2 items or 3 items, and there's a queue. So as you said, that it was the 90s, and the story goes on. But anyone who want to comment on the recent issue about how do you do business in emerging markets when the price is so high because of the tax, and what would be your strategy?
If I can speak about Vilebrequin. Currently, we do not really decrease our price in this country. And of course, in Korea, for instance, or in Brazil, people locally are paying really higher prices than when they're traveling all over the world. We do not change our strategy, and we do not reduce our margin to compensate the duties, clearly.
Hello everybody, I'm Nicolas Basson. I'm pursuing a master's degree in business counseling and information technology, not at ESSEC but at Dauphin's University. I'm just looking around, sorry. I have something to say about Franck and Mrs. Espinasse idea about local. You said try to spread global and act with local products. So I'd like to know how Vilebrequin is going to address this problem. You talk about China. You said that the problem is your core business is about beach clothes, but Chinese people don't usually spend so much time on this kind of leisure activities. So do you think it's only about transforming the products you deliver, or maybe there is an issue about the business, your entire business model you have to transform and fundamentally change?
I can answer. Clearly for me, in luxury brands, you do not follow the trend or you create the demand. When we decided to go in China, I remember Starbucks. They achieved to penetrate Asian market for people who are drinking only tea, and they achieved to make people drinking coffee. And it's the same for us. When we see how we developed in Hong Kong our swimming trunks, and the brand is now, because of his heritage, because of the dream which is bringing for the customers, and because of awareness of the brand, we create the demand. And of course, perhaps they do not use our swimming trunks and our ready-to-wear to go to the beach or to swim, but just to be on the beach. And of course, the development of the leisure in Asia now start to go more on the beach. So we create the demand. That's it.
Hello, I've been working for less than 2 years, so I'm very happy to hear about your experience and your knowledge. Okay. And I would like to know, what do you think about CRM for luxury brands? Do you think it's more important to have a different experience in each country, or to have the same experience in every country, the same advantages and the same way of being treated by the people in the stores and everything about CRM?
Who wants to answer?
Yeah, CRM, it's a huge topic.
Yeah, it's a very huge topic.
It's what has customer relationship management to do. I think I'll let Rolf answer a little bit. Rolf is an expert in supply chain. So her question is about CRM, about the experience in the store, about experience in different parts of the world vis-a-vis the luxury brands. Should it be same? Should it be different? And how do you want to manage it? Rolf managed from the back end Guerlain for a very long time. So do you want to speak? Do you want to have a comment on the customer preferences. I think Rolf is somewhere else. So, sorry, Rolf, but I thought that Rolf is a co-organizer of this conference. Rolf, in fact, motivated me that we should have something in France, something in Paris, something in ESSEC, something in La Défense. So basically, we, in a very quick time, we tried to organize this. In fact, in less than 15 days, where most of the conferences are organized over 6 months. And I'm very happy that the people I wrote to, around 10, 12 people whom I knew from different places. And most of them were, of course, ESSEC alums, and they responded very quickly, in the sense that the day I was thinking whom to ask to come to this conference at such a short notice, vis-a-vis different sectors, this guy, Alexis, who was my good student in 2005, the same day he sent a request in LinkedIn, the same time, in fact, within 1 hour, that I am, by the way, on the other side. I know that you do this, you invite people to your classes. Can I come on the other side to speak about my experience? And here is Alexis today to talk about his brand. I'm still waiting for our next presenter. I think he will be here soon. But if you have any other questions, Guillermo, do you have any questions? If I remember your name right? Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Your present speaker. I'm trying to sell, since I established with Dieter in Italy a company, I'm trying to sell pashmina and cashmere to Indian and Chinese. So, yeah, I know it's very difficult, and of course we are very young. We just established 15 months ago the company, trying to use very old technology, very old flying shuttle looms to weave our scarves. And of course, as all the European and Western brands, we have difficulties. And I agree with Mr. Viot saying that the taxes and custom clearance they are amazing. We are talking about India is 35% more or less. So it's a huge gap that we have difficulties to recover. But I think that when you have a good store, when you have good arguments, there is still place for new brands. And I agree with you. We are working on the sensitive, mainly on touches. So our cashmere is fantastic. It's completely different than the Indian ones or Chinese. We are producing in Biel. I'm just doing some advertisement. If you want, it's Christmas period, so it's the right period to buy a scarf for a gift. So, and for the time being, just according to our short experience, we are not investing a lot of our energies and money on the internet, because it's demanding as well a lot of money, and we prefer to be more dedicated to the commercial development, which is giving us cash, which is important. I think that even for your experience, cash is important for luxury. We are consuming luxury. When you prepare a collection, it's an amazing amount of money. And also the difficulties, as you said, is to try to understand the flavor, the taste, the goût of each countries. But I think that we have this great opportunity that with the BRICS, with the emerging markets, can give us new business.
So I didn't get your name, but we'll come back to CRM when we are outside, because no one is ready to answer your question. Okay. Okay, now I think we will be short of time, but Jonathan is doing very good work in China, and he organized a conference with UB France last week, where he gathered an impressive number of guests and speakers and talking about emerging markets. So I thought that we would end this roundtable discussion. There was no table, of course. There is not round anymore, so it's just a one-way discussion. But Jonathan might give some issues and discussions in emerging markets. Don't speak too much about China, because already they have taken your core competence, I think, out of you. So just conclude by saying what you think about emerging markets, because in your conference there was Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, there was Russia, there was Brazil, of course, a little bit of the US, and India, of course. So, Jonathan.
Thank you, Ashok. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I didn't prepare anything before coming, and any case, I don't have the right to speak about China, so I don't know what I'm going to say. But I'll try to find a way. The thing, I think, one of the most important issues we raised is the evolution of the luxury market and the luxury business. Globally, I guess that 20 years ago, luxury products were made for rich people in rich countries. That is, products were made for Japanese consumers, American consumers, European consumers, and mainly we knew what they expect, we knew where they lived, we knew who they knew, etc., etc. So we knew probably more or less what to expect and what they expected. But there were two important evolutions, I guess, over the past 20 years. One is democratization. That is, luxury brands believed that it was better to have more consumers. Well, that's kind of a smart thought, I guess. And so, basically, because middle classes were getting richer and richer, they thought, well, why not? Okay, maybe they don't have enough money to buy Christian Dior bag, but maybe they can buy a shirt. It's better than nothing, right? So democratization spread luxury in rich countries, not only with rich people, but throughout classes, I'd say. And the other trend was internationalization. That is, luxury brands would go to rich people, not only rich countries, but also to China, to Brazil, to India tomorrow, wherever. I think these two trends really changed the size and the issues that were raised by the luxury business globally. One of the most important issues that you raised tonight, and I think that it was good to think about that, is the question of coherence and adaptation. That is, you're a luxury brand, but how far can you and do you have to adapt to gain sales and new consumers? Because globally, we understand that luxury is all about balance. It's about balance with time, because you have a long history and you have to play with fashion. It's about balance with offer and demand, because you create all the time, but you have to adapt to consumers. It's a balance with globally, let's say, a unique image worldwide, but also very different realities and consumers all around the world. So the question is, where do you put, your limit to coherence and adaptation? And a lot of very good issues were raised, but I think globally what I have in mind now, thinking while speaking, or the other way around, I don't know, is that globally, luxury is about desire and not needs. I don't need a 10,000 euro watch, and my wife doesn't need a 5,000 euro bag. Maybe she needs it more than my watch, but the thing is, she doesn't need it, okay? But she may desire it. And the difference is, okay, let's say globally that people around the world have the same needs, okay? We all need to have a home, we all need to eat, we need to rest, we need our children to be safe. This is needs, and globally we share the same, but desires are very different. Maybe in Japan, people desire to be, looked the same way and to belong to society. Maybe in France, I desire to be looked differently, etc., etc. And because those desires are very different, then we have to really get to know people and understand society's cultures, etc. And this is, just, there is no rule for that. There's just time, patience, and understanding. And the more luxury brands are getting to emerging markets, as you said, the more important it gets to really get to know the consumers and adapt. The last word I have in mind is there is no clear rule and no clear answer for that. It depends on your sector, because obviously in cosmetics you have to adapt much more than in accessories, because globally you don't sell the same products all around the world. There is no same expectations. It depends on the positioning also, because Chanel doesn't have the same constraints as Lancôme. It depends on the market you work with. And it depends on the level of influence of the markets also, because some markets are kind of preserved, like Taiwan. You mentioned Taiwan. But as far as fashion is concerned, what happens is Taiwan stays in Taiwan. You can show products in Taiwan that you have in stock, because nobody watches what happened in Taiwan. So as long as you have stocks, you will sell. But what happens in Paris is seen all around the world, so you have to adapt also to the level of influence of your markets. So I think emerging markets raise a lot of hopes and challenges, as you said, but now China is both considered the developed markets and the developing markets. Developed because of the size and the number of stores and of the level of sophistication you can see in Shanghai, for example, but also as a very, very strong developing markets, because every day there are new cities emerging, etc. And the complexity of China, I think, crystallize the complexity of the luxury market worldwide. That is, you have to continue to sell to rich people and to these kind of sophisticated markets, while at the same time you have to educate consumers and to some extent adapt not your products maybe, but your strategy and your way to communicate. So that were the few things I had in mind. I didn't speak so much about China, right?
So thank you very much. If we want him to speak, he can go on speaking about China because he's very motivated about China. He spends 6 months in China and 6 months in Paris. So he's helping brands in China for a long time. So now I'll ask my sorry for this, my student, but my also very close friend, Kumar, who has been here with me, who has worked with me on the India Research Center to give some small gifts to the speakers. So Kumar was the first batch of the modular MBA program of ESSEC Business School, and he is, you have to speak. Vote of thanks and distribute.
Thanks, Ashok. Just quite surprised. I didn't saw that it would be transformed as a classroom. So all students are interviewed and questioned. No, I didn't prepare. So word of thanks will be probably, I think, I believe that you organized it in a very short time. And I think the luxury still attracts people about emerging markets. I think last year you did similar exercise on luxury in India. And I think a lot of brands are coming, to India, to China, and now we hear also brands coming from emerging markets to Paris. I think the reverse way is also interesting to see. And thanks a lot. I'm nothing more to say to add today. Thanks a lot to all of you for this session, and I learned a lot. And yes. So Vilebrequin again is a brand that I've learned today. So next time I'll go to Saint-Tropez, maybe I'll try.
You can go to Dubai also.
Dubai.
So this is to Alexis.
Martell.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
This is to Franck.
This is like Christmas, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Before Christmas. Thank you.
Okay. And this is
To yourself.
I don't have one, but this is, I think, to
Wow.
Jonathan. Merci.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.